Beginning ODO podcast in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the ODO podcast, where normal is not my specialty. I am your host, as always, the running around like a chicken with my head cut off, Adam Higgins, the odd dad out. And this is the show where I normally talk about all sorts of weird shit going on, and I make fun of some shit in the news, and I tell you about a podcast that you should be listening to, except at the end of the month, where I have a guest come on and talk a lot of shit with me, and whatever, just have a funny, weird, whatever the hell happens chat. And this month, I have Kate from Ignorance Was Bliss, who it's taken forever to get her on here. It's just lots of stuff. Now, just to pull back the curtain, this was recorded in conjunction. This is one massive recording that was taken both for this episode and for National Podcast Post Month. And if you hear those episodes, you'll notice the similarities, just saying. But just wanted to get that out of there. I don't know why I felt like disclosing that. Maybe you wouldn't have noticed. But just, but it was just so much I couldn't not let it out to you. But also, because this was recorded for November's Podcast Post Month, the intro for that does actually pop up a few minutes in, just because this includes our off-book conversation all the way through to the stuff that happened afterwards. It was just too good. And so, enough rambling from me. Here is Kate.
So tell me what we're doing today.
Do you know the number of podcasts you regularly listen to offhand?
Yeah, about. I can figure it out in a few seconds. But I mean, that's not a question with a numeric answer. So, I mean, go for it, and I can explain the answer. I can explain that as it goes.
Okay, I'm curious to how that's not actually a numeric answer, because it's actually kind of what the definition of a numeric is, like how many.
Yeah, well, you know what? I don't behave very well.
You know, numbers are so fluid. I mean, it's all just a concept of just your perception of value. I don't know why I'm going with this one.
I don't know why you go quite so flamboyant.
I don't know either.
my husband has a shirt that says 2 + 2 = 5 for very large values of 2. So, you know.
Technically speaking.
Right? He's a math professor.
Exactly.
Like,
your variable could mean different things. And well, maybe you're using the symbol of 2 to represent a variable, and now your 2 isn't actually a 2.
I'm saying
2 isn't 2 as you perceive 2. 2 is a different 2.
Well, there's 2 ones versus 2 dozens, and those are totally different things.
Yes.
So you're asking a series of this is for NaNoPodMo, not okay.
So yeah, it's basically it's like a giant podcast recommendation listening survey sort of thing.
Okay.
When I was talking to Moxie, I basically explained it as I asked for people to send me their recommendations. Like, hey, record yourself giving a recommendation because, hey, I'm sure people want to hear from more than me. And nobody did it. Granted, my audience is tiny, so nobody did it. This time, I'm inviting everybody on, and this entire thing basically turns into a giant podcast recommendation info dump.
I was going to say circle jerk, but same.
There's been granted, I've only had a handful of interviews, but because everybody's in their own little thing, nobody has recommended the same things yet. And I was thinking I'm going to get to some overlap, but so far there's been like recommendations of possibly other guests. Moxie suggested The Story Behind. Makes sense. Everything she had was in the history and trivia categories. Like, yeah, it's kind of her wheelhouse. Chris was talking gaming stuff and X-Men stuff. Like, yeah, that's Chris. Of course, Chris is going to suggest that. So
right.
like everybody's kind of so far staying in their own wheelhouse, but it's still one of those, like, I recommendations from someone other than me. And a lot of them are stuff that I'm not listening to, stuff I wouldn't. It was like, why would I listen to a show about Orthodox Judaism?
Well, because you'll learn stuff about Orthodox shoes.
Yeah. But I'm not going to be drawn to that thing.
Right.
So I'm not going to be featuring that show, but somebody else might. So This is where you're going to find out all that shit. So that's what I'm doing.
Cool.
Lots and lots of recommendations of them every day. Not that we're not already recording, but all right. Big deep breath.
Wow.
So much of that crap got cut out with me and Derek, just us screwing around.
I am unsurprised.
Well, if you had the Patreon version, you got a lot of that crap.
I do. But, I have
just the like 2-hour version of it.
I have so little. Well, plus, bear in mind with Derek is that I record with him.
Yeah.
Once a week, every other week, something like that. Plus, we have the occasional like Friday night drinking experience. Yeah. So I already hear a whole lot from Derek.
Yeah. You're up to here with fucking Derek right now. So,
well, not yet, but I don't want to get there. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's like, let's add another 2-hour conversation of listening to Derek talk to somebody else.
Well, because yours came up, like yours just, your conversation with him on your main feed just kind of queued up. And so I was like, cool. And I, for reasons unclear, when I switched phones, Podcast Addict updated everything except my Patreon feeds. So I haven't imported them yet. And so that came up. And so I've heard it. And so now the idea of listening to the Patreon feed after I've heard like the edited version, I'm like, maybe.
And it's like, I don't remember this bit. And a lot of it's, us, BS and filler and maybe I shouldn't have said that, or that was, redundant or, stuff like that. I think I cut out the part where Sam interrupted. I think. There were a couple of little bits that actually, like, I snipped them off. And if you're paying attention in the regular episode, you catch like him coming in and I snipped it, but you still hear like him open the door, Dad. Like the start of it as it gets snipped.
Yeah. Kids, man.
Yep. And trolling Paul because trolling Paul. It's like there was a big chunk that got taken out just trolling Paul.
I mean, something about Paul, like, I don't entirely understand this, but like, it's not every episode, but if you pick the one podcaster that is mentioned in more of my episodes than any other podcaster, it's Paul.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knows him. Everybody talks about him.
Yep.
So fine. I've sort of given over to the inevitability that Paul is going to be mentioned. And so he hasn't come up in the past, like, I don't know, 4 or 5. And I'm starting to feel a little bit weird, I got to say.
Because he calls me out when I do shit. So I feel like trolling him and intentionally doing shit to push his buttons. Because I know he'll respond. Like, respond to some shit, I'm gonna mess with you back. Right. I'm gonna mess with you publicly.
Listener engagement.
Yes. I'm your friendly neighborhood troll. That's all.
That's fine.
There could be much worse trolls out there than me.
Well, I mean, I have a fucking stalker, so yeah.
You can't see me, but I'm doing funny hands things right now. All right.
Jazz hands.
Welcome to the Odd Dad Out podcast. Today, I have Kate Bowser Wallinga, and I'm sorry, I just had to fuck your name up as best I possibly could because the first time I read it ever, I read Bowser. I'm like, oh, that's going to stick in my brain forever.
Amazing.
Should change your profile picture to Mario.
I've taken, by the way, my maiden name off of my profile deliberately. Not because of the Bowser thing, because come on, Wallinga, which is the funnier last name, but because I was trying to protect the privacy of some of my relatives. But whatever, Adam, blow it out of the water. It's fine.
Yep. Now I need to find that sound effect just to drop it in right there. But I have Kate Wallinga, as you would put it so eloquently. Kate from Ignorance Was Bliss. One word. We are here. You are here. Okay, you are there and I am here. Far across the world or the country, whatever, maps, geography's weird, flat earth. Anyway, don't you just love my intros? It's just the best.
It's the best. We just got things splattered over here, and then there's some pink over here, but we're going to go with the purple to offset it.
But, Kate, even though I've talked about your show before, and it's totally considered lazy interviewing, you tell the people out there, because also, and although I've got Derek on here too, and he's talked a little about it, but tell my dear listener about what it is you do, because you're not just doing the one thing anymore.
I'm involved in 3 shows right now with the potential of a 4th because I have a problem.
Don't we all?
Yeah, I was going to say it's an addiction. It's a cult. It's a little of both. But sure. So my main show is called Ignorance Was Bliss. It has to do with the idea that everybody's got a story to tell and everybody's got a path that they followed to get where they are. And it may not make sense when you first think about it, but I can get you there. I can talk them through their story until you're like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. And that's fine if the person is talking about like, I had anxiety or I have cancer, like you can kind of follow that. But I can also get you there if we're talking about a serial killer. So that by the end of the show, you're going, yeah, I get it. That makes sense. And then you're going, shit, I didn't actually want to know that. So that's that one. I'm sneaking up on 2 years now of having, since I started that, which is amazing.
And like 40 billion episodes.
50, I think by now. Yeah, no. And it's because I don't have to do a fuckload of editing for each episode. Like the bulk of it is just me talking to somebody, and I don't edit for content on that. It's just I want you to hear the whole conversation sort of as it played. And then I do an intro and an outro, and those are unscripted. So I just sort of make shit up. So, it takes some time to put each one together, but not remotely the kind of time that like an audio drama or a scripted show would take. Yeah.
Because those are eternity for a 30-minute episode.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask Derek. Derek and I talked about that. It's like 10 hours for a 1 hour thing.
I would not be able to edit an audio drama. I can put together conversational narrative pieces, but the idea of taking several vocal tracks and music background and the Foley effects and all of that, it's well beyond my attention span. It's beyond my capabilities, and physically I wouldn't be able to because I'm hard of hearing. So I don't edit a whole ton per episode, and that allows me to dump, 27 or 53 or whatever it is episodes a week.
Yeah. Too many.
Oh, is it too many now? Okay, then.
I think it's too many because it's hard to keep up, and they're not short.
They're not short. They're like an hour and a half each.
Yeah, it's like a short episode for you is an hour. And so when I've got 5 hours of Kate in my feed and it's Wednesday.
That's about right. Well, but the thing is, I like when I put it together in Still Now, I never expect anybody to listen to every episode. Like the reason that I bounce around from, talking to somebody with ADHD to talking to somebody with cancer to talking about a serial killer and so on. It's so that you can tune into what you're interested in, and then you can just ignore the other stuff. Like, because that's how my brain works. So, welcome to my head.
Yep. and that's just Ignorance Was Bliss. So then you and Derek, which we've learned you've managed to trick him into joining you.
He is so full of shit. Jesus H. Christ. Okay, so his version of the story is that I developed this like obsession with him, and I did everything I could to get him in. Here's what happened from my end, is that I had an idea, and I was like, Derek, are you interested in this? Because I wanted to combine aspects of true crime and psychology, which I know about, with talking about cybercrime. And I don't know as much about the internet and gamer life and Lizard Squad and shit like that. Like, those are things I don't know. So I wanted somebody that knew about that side, and we could kind of have a conversational thing, although much more focused than Ignorance Was Bliss and much shorter, like half an hour each. And he was sort of interested, kind of, and I was like, all right, well, I just need to know, because I just want to get rolling on this. And he's the one who came up with the title. So to me, that smacks of being interested anyway. And I was just kind of getting to the point, like chomping at the bit, like, I want to do this. Should I ask somebody else? Because I had a couple other people that I'd been talking to that showed some interest. And as soon as I said that, he's like, oh, no, I'll do it. So, sure, Derek, it's all me.
Yeah, that's not the way he told it.
I know. I've heard him over and over again. And I'm just like, so whatever, like, okay.
Okay. 2 down.
Yes, that's 2 down. So I have a third that is in like pre-production. We have like a working title and a basic concept of it, but that's going to take a whole lot from me. And so I don't want to go, like, in terms of my skill level is going to be peaked out on that one. So I don't want to go too far down the road of what that's going to be because I have no idea when it's going to come out. But it's basically a combination of like true crime, but not murder. Like, I'm not at all. See, that's okay. There's my thing. I don't like murder porn. I think it's shit. I think that we spend so much time talking about serial killers and blood spatter and, you know, then he wore her head as a hat and all of that. And that's all well and good, I guess, for some people, but that's not going to happen. Like, it's not going to happen to you or anybody you know. It's super rare. And meanwhile, people aren't paying any attention to the crimes that are going to happen. You know, the domestic violence, the street theft, the, you know, insurance fraud, shit like that. Like, that's the stuff that you need to be aware of what it is and how it happens. And we have a concept that's sort of coming into place that should make that hopefully at least somewhat more interesting than just a narrative style. Because, you know, who really wants to listen to a narrative talk about, I don't know, emotional abuse or domestic violence when they can go listen to a story about a serial killer? So I don't know. I don't really have an elevator pitch down for that one because I'm still in. It's
still a work in progress. It's still being workshopped or out to work out the details of what it's going to be.
Exactly. So I have a co-host and we're working on it. And then number 4 is that a friend of mine, Ian, has a podcast that is called Under the Shroud. It is like it's an audio drama, like a paranormal bad behavior, demons / there's an element of crime there, but not really, I guess. It's more like there's white supremacists. So I don't like that. But that's the point. You're not supposed to like it. And so that's his, like, entirely his baby. That's his, I don't have any creative input on that whatsoever, but he needed help finding like voice actors for it and then nagging the voice actors and organizing it and scheduling and that kind of thing. I'm like, that's my wheelhouse. Like, I could do that.
Like, I can round people up and nag them for you.
I mean, I have 4 kids, right? So I could do that professionally. And so I was like, sure. So on Saturday, this weekend, I posted a thing in my Facebook group, like, is anybody interested? And I thought maybe I'd get 3 or 4 who were like, yeah, sure, I'd try it. I got 44 responses.
I was one of them.
You were. And so now I'm involved in organizing that. And secondarily, this will be past tense by the time this comes out, but I'm going to be running his table at Podtails, which is the convention for audio dramas that's happening in Cambridge, Massachusetts on October 20th.
I was like, August. August was already gone.
I stuttered. Jesus Christ.
Have I mentioned I'm a troll? I'm pretty sure we've mentioned I'm a troll.
That's a word for it.
No, yeah. Was it Derek just said? It was like, he just talks about random stuff, but he's kind of an asshole. And it's like, yeah, that's me in a nutshell. But I'm a lovable asshole. Some say,
as it were.
Some people say
for certain definitions of lovable. Yeah. No, I mean,
it's like the winner of the ugly dog contest is lovable to somebody.
Yeah, a face only a mother. No, I mean...
No, she's calling me ugly, Mom!
I can't tell. I'm looking at a blank computer screen. So, I mean, you're looking a little rectangular and dark right now, but whatever.
So after all this crap you're doing now, because you caught the podcaster virus, which I've totally did an episode about that before. I think it's like episode 22 or 23, way the hell back forever ago. I'm serious to think I need to remaster that one and re-release it, because I listened back to it recently and that one was really good. For one of my really early shows, that was a really good one. And I'm like, this is all true. And I'd say all this shit again. I don't even need to re-record it. I'm just going to retool it and do some little put some polish on this one and re-release it as is. But doing a podcast that actually now, I mean, you've pulled away from the traditional true crime. And you always refer to yourself, and I've said it, and just about everybody now understands, similar to other podcasting terms you have coined, true crime adjacent has entered the lexicon.
That's me.
And that is you. And that is exactly what you, and like everything you do, really, because you, even with Lifeworld, it's like, yeah, it's true crime, but it's not the true crime like everybody does true crime. And so it is, like, again, with my interview with Derek, where we were talking about how, you know, you went from Ignorance Was Bliss, started off pretty much in the true crime area, and became much more, and just slowly inched away. And now you are true crime adjacent. Lifeworld is kind of, to me, between now Ignorance Was Bliss and traditional true crime. It's kind of, it's closer to real true crime, real normal true crime, and then your main show. But everything you do is in that true crime adjacent realm, because I mean, that is your area of expertise. That is your wheelhouse. I don't know if you could, I can't, not to sound it, I don't think I could picture you doing something that didn't at least touch in that area, because it is so much of who you are. And you've even said before, it's like you have a hard time talking to somebody for very long before your brain just starts clicking into analysis of things. And like, you did that for so long. And even now, when you technically don't have to anymore, your brain still starts picking apart people's brains without even trying.
Yeah, it's, I don't diagnose everybody I talk to. Like, I need that out there, that I just don't. But
on purpose.
But I have to do that. Like, I have to flip that switch so that we're just friends, we're just buddies talking, and I'm not diagnosing. Like, that's one of the early things they sort of teach you in grad school, is like how not to talk to your spouse in certain ways that will make them have to sleep on the couch for the rest of your married life, you know? Because
I need that trick.
Yeah, because you need to still be able to have relationships and have interactions and move through the world without assuming everybody's a criminal. So I've learned that. But yeah, I mean, I was in school for 12 years. And both during and after that, I worked, before I broke my back, it was like another 10 or 12 years in the field. So, I mean, I don't know how you not, because it kind of comes up. It's like anything. I think, like, when you've been really immersed in podcasting for a while, and then you start listening, I don't know, to TV, or you listen to another podcast, or you just listen to your kids, and there's times where you're like, this would make a good show, but you should word it this way. You know, or that would sound better without the background track or whatever.
That's what the podcaster brain starts doing to you. You start producing everything you hear.
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And so, like, I start not psychoanalyzing, that's not the right word, but I start psychologizing something.
So from not the right word to not sure if that's a word.
It's not a word at all. No. I'm just making it up. But that's my thing, as you just said.
Yes, you make up words and people accept them. People accept your words for some reason. I don't know about me, but
apparently the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation accepts my words. Like, Jesus Christ. So what we're talking about, because this is like, what a day. So I woke up this morning, my Twitter blows up, and the CBC podcast, whatever, the branch of Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, published an article today about words that are sort of coined specifically to do with podcasting, and mine is first on that list. And so I'm reading that like, what is my life? I don't understand. And so my word is podler.
Yeah.
And it's the cross between being a podcaster and a toddler. And it's the idea that you've gone ahead and released an episode or two, but you're not at a point where you kind of know the process cold, or that you're confident you're going to do the next one. And so you're just sort of stumbling a lot and you haven't found your feet yet. And I had a whole thread on Twitter, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, asking people how long before you're out of podlerhood. And the general consensus seems to be like 3 to 6 months.
Depending on how prolific you are. Because
mine was 20 minutes.
Yeah. Because for me, it's like, at what point do you go through that pod adolescence? Because you're nervous when you start off. It's like, but you basically start off as a pubescent teen. You're nervous, your hands are sweating, your voice is cracking.
No, I think, the birthing pains goes with that first episode, and then you are a podler for a little while because you're so focused on the mechanics that you almost can't be nervous. And then at some point you get the mechanics, you understand how to use your editing software, and you understand how to upload everything and write show notes and whatever it is that you do. And then you're like, oh, wait, people are listening to what I'm doing? Like, what is that? And I think that's when you move out of podlerhood, and that's when you become you go into podlessence, right? I don't know. It's a weird process, and it's a very, like a combination, not podlerhood specifically, but overall podcasting is this weird combination of wicked imposter syndrome, which, by the way, has nothing to do with being a podler. Like, people who've been doing podcasting for years and years and years still have imposter syndrome. So that's not the defining feature.
Yeah.
But podcasting in general is this combination between imposter syndrome and narcissism, right? Because I still feel like, what am I doing? Somebody's going to figure out that I don't know what I'm doing, and they're going to come and take my mic away. Like, this is crazy. And on the other hand, obviously you and I and all of our friends feel like we have something worth listening to because we're still hitting publish. And there's an inherent narcissism in that.
Yeah. It's like, why are you listening to me? I mean, I'm not going to stop talking, but why are you listening to me?
I'm saying, well, but not even. Like, we think, like, if we really were completely clueless, if we really felt like I don't have anything interesting to say, we'd stop doing it.
Yeah. I don't understand why you're listening, but,
But listen, here it is. Right?
Like, hold on. I mean, I need to put another soapbox out here.
Well, half the time I'm talking and I'm like, wait, what is this soapbox and how did I get up here? Like, I'm so sorry. Let me back down.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and remind you that starting November 1st through the 30th, I am going to be participating in National Podcast Post Month. That means for 30 days, that's right, the entire month of November, I am going to be dropping another episode of variable length every single day. This is going to include interviews that I've talked about doing, more news stories that I'm not getting to in regular episodes, maybe some appearances from the kids, and I really don't know what else at this point. It's just more me, because don't you just need more me in your life? So stay tuned to this feed or go to odddadoutpodcast.com. There's going to be a link just for those episodes that will go up. I will put it in the show notes because that's what you do. But until, well, a few days from now, let's get back to the show.
Listening to podcasts itself is sort of a lifestyle change.
Yeah. And you don't think about it before. You're like, oh, I'm listening to this thing instead of maybe listening to the radio. And then you realize you stop listening to the radio and you stop listening to music. And next thing you know, you've got 100 something odd podcasts that you're subscribed to. And every element of your life, suddenly you care more about listening to the podcast than watching TV and doing all of the things, because there's so much more. And you get so emotionally, and especially once you do get into those long form stories and you get emotionally invested in these shows, or even something like with you, where you get emotionally invested in the host, and there's that transparency that you have where, you know, it's different when it's a show like if something dramatic happened in the real lives of the actors on Welcome to Night Vale, you wouldn't know it inside the show. But in your case, when your dad died, everybody knew.
Yeah.
It became a very notable part of your show for a pretty substantial chunk of time. It
still is to a degree, but yeah.
Not to the you know, assholes bitching about it level that it was. It's like, and I think yeah. I like as much as it was a fuck off asshole sort of thing, I've noticed that when topics that you used to go much further into frequently, if the situation came up, like the murder bird story, you used to tell that whole story every time. And now you give a much more Cliff Notes version of it.
Yeah, I mean, because I feel like people can find it. Yeah, but and that's the thing is I struggle with that balance between, I know that I have longtime listeners. I know that I've had people that have listened from the first episode, bless their hearts, you know, and then I know that people are just tuning in for the first time. So I always have that weird balance of how deeply do I go in and reintroduce a thing? How much do I explain my background and that kind of thing? And there are times where I feel like stupid repetitive on things, but that's just sort of where the story goes. But I mean, absolutely, that I bring an awful lot of myself to the show.
And it's just like with me here. The show is about me. If you're listening to this show for anything other than whatever the hell drew you to listen to me, the show is me, and your show is you and other people and their stories. But at the end of the day, it's you and your show. You are the draw. Because if you're going to listen to Ignorance Was Bliss or anything you do for just the guest, you're not going to listen for very long, because it's not going to be like any other interview or any other appearance of anybody on any other show. They go to you, and it's a very different conversation than what you're going to have. And it's not the style that traditionally people do interviews and it's not an interview. It is, I've described it, I believe, before as just like, it's kind of therapy to a degree, just sitting down and talking to you. It's like being on your podcast is a form of therapy. And not that you psychoanalyze everybody, but it just,
I mean, no, I totally accept that. But it's a therapeutic thing, I think, a lot, because
it's you let your guard down and you start talking, you let the things out that maybe you didn't. Things. Yeah. People tell you things. I was on your show. I told you things.
I'm saying, and that's a gift, that people give that I really am grateful for. I'm grateful for their trust. And I try really hard to respect that, which in turn, I think allows other people to come on the show and talk to me again. And yeah, I mean, it's a funny line, because I wonder sometimes about that, I'm stumbling over my own words because I'm having like 6 thoughts at once. But so in April, when my dad died, but also right before that for like 2 weeks, I had a molar snap off, and I couldn't speak clearly enough to be understood. But I had a bunch of backlogged episodes, which because you did one of them, where I sent them out to friends, and between A, I can't speak clearly, and then B, I had oral surgery, and then C, my dad died, and I was out of my fucking mind. And so all of this stuff meant that I couldn't keep production going, but the podcast has been sort of my anchor. It's like the aspect of my life that is mine. Not when I'm being mom, not when I'm being wife, not when I'm being any of the other things I am, but that just, this is me. And you getting me in a fairly unfiltered way. And so I didn't want to let it go. And so I sent out these conversations that I'd had with people out to my friends to say, can you record an intro and an outro for me? Because I really want to keep it rolling, but I can't speak to do it right now. And people did, and that was great, and that was amazing. But I've often wondered, like, could somebody else do the whole conversation? And Derek actually suggested it very recently, because I had oral surgery 2 weeks ago, and I'm showing signs that I might be rejecting the implant, the bone graft, which I hope is not true. But
that would suck.
But I've done it twice, so it's within the realm of my possibility. And so I posted, like, sort of to put people on alert, like, I might need help again. And several people answered, and then Derek answered, and he was like, why don't you just randomly pair up two people to talk and run that? And I had kind of an existential crisis about that, especially because a listener sent me this, like, incredibly outraged. I'm so sorry. This isn't funny, but it's funny. I got this incredibly outraged DM from a listener who is in the group, which my Facebook group is amazing and everybody needs to join it because it is the best place ever. But she was just like, how dare he say that? That dick doesn't understand how much of you bring to the show. And is he really suggesting that you don't need to be a part of your podcast? And I was like, whoa, like,
cool yo tits.
Dude, we skipped the Ativan today because holy shit. Because I was like, look, you're like, there are some people out there in the world who could say something like that, and I would interpret it as like, he's implying that I don't need to be a part of the show. And I could see that. Like, once she said that, I had this period of time of like, shit, like existential crisis time. Like, how crucial am I to my own show? And how much of it is just the setup and the fact that I have created this format that's unusual. And the answer is, yeah, it's my show. It's me.
Yeah. Like at the end of the day, I mean, it is your show. And even if somebody stepped in your place to help out with doing episodes in your absence, it would not be the same. And nobody could do this show the way you can do this show. And in part because nobody can get into people's brains and get people to open up and tell the stories that you can. I can get people to talk shit like you can get people to open up all of their psyche.
Right.
You come here to talk shit. You get to go to you to empty out all of the things in your brain that you didn't realize you needed to get out of your brain.
Right. And I mean, and that's the thing, is that I'm not trying to get into the therapist-y way, but I think that people know that, like, for one, I'm not going to judge because you live your life, I live mine, and we're fine. For another, there is no possible way that you out there, if you're sitting in your own home, are going to tell me something where I'm going to be like, oh, fuck, now do I totally judge? Like, you just went over the pale. Like, I have sat in the room with a serial killer. So fucking bring it, like it's hard to shake my tree in that sense. And yeah, so I was very lucky to have friends that did the intros and outros, and they did a great job. And like, that was super helpful. And as for the rest of it, like, so far, I mean, I have a backlog of like 10 interviews that I haven't used yet. So
I don't know how you have backlog when you do so many interviews and you release so many at a time. I still don't understand.
I talk to somebody at least 5 times a week.
Which, like, the fact that you had time to talk to me is kind of amazing.
Well, I mean, my children are running feral in the streets. It's fine. But I talk to somebody almost every day, or at least schedule somebody every day. And that way, if there's cancellations, it's not a big deal. But right now, I'm talking to people more often than I'm dropping episodes. And that works out fine, because then when I have surgery or whatever, I can quick bang out a couple of intros and outros, because I can still edit after I'm recovering. I have oral surgeries like every 3 or 4 months. And when that happens, there's a span of like 2 or 3 weeks where I can't enunciate clearly enough to put out an episode, but I can still edit. So I just record a bunch before that and then edit later. So there's ways around it. But yeah, I mean, I'm talking to you now. I'm recording. You said it's not interviews. It's not interviews. What I do. It's not. I literally have a blank notebook, And I have a series of like housekeeping questions I have to ask people. And I don't have any prepared questions. I don't have any intended direction for things to go. Let's just play. Let's see where it goes. And some people bring me a script or an outline because they want to stay on topic more, and I'm cool with that. But from my point of view, I don't start off with an agenda.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky that people are willing to talk to me, and it becomes like right now. So today is September 30th, and I'm telling people if they, when they want to try and schedule a thing, that my next availability is approximately October 22nd.
Woof.
People like to talk to me. Like, I don't know. For all Derek talks about, like, I had to rope him in. Like, I'm saying, people actually choose to talk to me.
Oddly enough, I know that if I ask somebody, they'll come on the show. But I'm that schmuck. I'm just like, I don't know. I don't want to. I get the imposter syndrome side of it. And I'm not a big name like you. I'm not published in Canadian broadcasting shit. I'm not getting quoted in the Canadian broadcasting paper and shit.
That blew my fucking mind.
So, I don't have the name recognition to like invite people on, and they're like, oh my God, yes, it's my friends. It's like,
well, but okay, I would say two things.
I invite my friends on, and are you busy? It's okay if you're busy.
Well, I would say two things to that. One is that it was around like my 100th episode, which is about the 1 year mark for me, that I started to have people ask to come on. Like I started to have strangers approach me and say, could they come on? So that was a weird thing. And that it's the step, you're a podler and then you're a podolescent. And then I don't know what the term is for being like a podult. I don't know. Whatever. But that it took, there's some sort of critical mass that was reached. And I reached that around 100 episodes. So that's one comment. And the other comment is that this community is fucking amazing. Like, I approach people all the time whom I don't know at all. I approached Emily Prokop out of the blue to say, hey, do you want to come on my show? And she didn't know me from Adam, as it were. See what I did there?
She actually knew you from me.
Well, but she didn't. I don't think she did. And like, there's other people that I've just kind of gone up to them cold and be like, do you want to come on? You want to talk to me? And not everybody says yes, of course. But if they don't say yes, they're still not on my show. Like, there's nothing, I'm not worse off for that. And a lot of people will. So it's a really solid community. And there's other times where I'm like, I need help with such and such. I don't know how to use the editing software to do a thing, or I need to find somebody who can help me with this or whatever. And all I have to do is ask, and people will help out. So it's a really great community. So I'm not at all shocked that you ask people and they're like, yeah, sure, I'll come on. I mean, I've been fucking nagging to come on your show for like 6 months. So
yeah, but well, to be fair, pulling back the curtain, I don't even know if this is going to make it in because I'll probably chop this down pretty well. But like, I mean, the first time just turned into toddler interference of the unbelievable variety. And I was like, and to a degree, it was I don't want to put in the amount of time it'll take to cut him out of all of this and make a lot of this intelligible, where I wasn't distracted by him. So it became just so chaotic for me trying the first time around. I was like, no, I got to figure out how to get you on here. And then this, and I was like, okay, you and Heather are those two that are like, you, Heather, Paul, Chris, Derek. I'm like, when I put out I'm going to do this thing in my brain, I'm assuming you guys are all in. And then I start going through realizing I never actually got that verification from you guys.
Right. Well, you never sent me the questionnaire. So there's that.
I was like, everybody else has the questions. War Baby has the questions. Everybody I have sent the questions to. Emily has the questions. Actually, just now I sent her the questions. But it's one of those things where, like, you guys are all, for sure, I know you guys will be in this because you guys are we're all in it. We're all in this together in all of our crazy way. But I never formally asked any of you.
No, but that's because I've been fucking nagging to come on your show, and I finally gave up at one point because, like, you talk about, like, the first time. Don't know, my friend. It took me like a year to get you to come on my show, and you still haven't actually gotten me on yours. So I'm just saying, I just want that out there. It's like a thing, like that I am not cool enough to be on your show.
You also do 50,000 interviews to my one a month. So, you know,
I see where I rank.
All things considered. Well, I've already said how I have this big long list of pod friends that I want to get on. The fact that it took me as long as it did to get Emily Prokop, who was one of my first podcaster friends ever, who my friendship with her actually was the spark that led me to so many others. Like, I would not know Heather Welch if it weren't for Emily, because we met through Emily's podcast share experiment she did on Twitter, where she had, here's an account. It's going to be curated by a different podcaster every week, and they're going to share their listening and their recommendations and their all whatever they're doing. And I was one of the I was helping her with kind of building that and orchestrating that and putting people together and being part of that. And I think Heather was like maybe 2 weeks after, and I was sharing everything and really putting that out there and listening to all the shows from all of the curators of that. And that Heather was really, really new. I don't think she'd even finished the original 7 Days of Sunshine challenge yet. So she was maybe 7 or 8 episodes into the show when she did that. And I started listening and I started commenting and messaging her. And then this just enormous friendship came from that. And I don't know, like, she has been a major influence on my life, and just my ability to do interviews came from interacting with her. I wouldn't be doing this right now, and so much growth in my life and who I am now. I don't know what I'd be like without her influence in my life, but it's still at the same time, Emily was the spark for that. And it still took me forever to get her on the show. And I think it was one of those, especially because it came right after her book. I was like, I don't feel like I was like, you're too big. Even though we've been friends for forever and we chat on a regular basis and we work together as editors, you're so up there. I was like, and you're so busy. I can't, like, how am I going to take time for you to come over and bullshit with me for however long? But it took me forever. I was like, why haven't, and when I finally did ask her, I'm like, why has it taken me so long to ask you? You know, but I've got this list of people, and the fact that it takes me, that I'm doing one a month, and that's why I'm doing 30, the fact that I'm only doing one a month makes it take forever to get through this list. Like, I'm going to run out of bullshit to talk about in a regular capacity before I can get through all these interviews. And I don't want to completely shift the show into an interview format, because that's not what I do. But I'm like, fuck, I want to talk to like all of the people, but I don't have all of the episodes to talk to all of the people. And so then when I talked to you, and then I was like, okay, well, we're going to have Paul. Well, I didn't formally have Derek on, and I need somebody right now. And because I would have popped you in earlier after first attempt, if I had not had that spark where I was like, October, perfect. You live in Salem. It's catchy. It's cheesy and pandery as fuck, but so was having Chris and Cody during Gay Pride Month. It's like, I'll pander. I'll be stupid and cheesy and pandery. Why? It's funny. Like, I'm going to invite the gayest people I know in podcasting, who really are actually kind of low key, but they're just like the ones that I know, and they're locals, and they're kind of friends of mine. And they're like, we could have orchestrated doing that live together, but that would have probably been awkward since we'd never met in person yet. But doing all that, I was like, and it's Pride Month. Of course I've got to invite them on. It's pandery as shit, but you know what? Fuck it. I was like, you live in Salem. It's a stupid, cheesy, like pandery ass way to, like, October, Halloween. You live in Salem. It's kind of vaguely Halloweeny. And in your life, it's a fuck, not again. So I know that's, I know that's the thing. You for all October right. Makes sense. So
I have 3 things. I have 3 things to say. One is totally get together in person with people. It's amazing. It's magical.
Oh, yeah. I thoroughly plan. There's actually a monthly meetup here put on by Evo Terra. I don't know if you know who he is. he is one of the first, like literally like one of the first podcasters ever. And he lives in Phoenix, and he has the Phoenix Podcasters group, and he puts on the third Thursday every month. There's a big Phoenix podcaster meetup at a club downtown. It's still about an hour from my house, and it's during working hours. And so it's really one of those, I need to find the ability to schedule the day off to go to that.
It's magic.
Yeah.
It's magic. Like I had met Kim from People Are Wild. She's been to my house twice, and otherwise I just sort of talked to people and kind of been in the orbit of a couple of people. But then, and then I met Sinead from Mens Rea because I went over to the UK and we met that way, and that was magical to see somebody in person. And then in July, there was the True Crime Podcast Festival, which I didn't actually enjoy the festival itself very much, but I loved meeting people. And there's just something magic about sitting in the room with other artists. And I got to meet more people when I took my son on vacation in the Pacific Northwest. And that's where I stayed at Derek's house. Like, you know, I got to really, like, we drank too much. That's a thing. And, you know, like the first person to pick me up off the plane is a listener, but she's the best ever, you know? So podcasting has definitely sort of infiltrated my life that way, and it's totally worth it. Like it's this magical thing. So there's one thing.
Yeah, I've made plans with Chris from BSP when he first found out about those meetups. And I was like, we need to orchestrate, and we're basically in on this together. We need to find a time where we can like go to one of these and we can officially meet, because it's like, we've been friends for a while through podcast stuff since they started that show. And we're like, we need to meet because it'd be really cool. And this one of these events would be a great thing to do it at.
But
and
just
so
do it. I mean, just do it casually. Just do dinner somewhere or whatever. It's great. So that's one. Yeah. Number 2, don't delete that. I mean, edit it out and play it as like your intro or something. But you just got very sort of intense and passionate, and it mattered. You just had a moment there that was not you being interviewed, but it was you being very genuine. So don't delete it. Okay, so that's the thing. And I mean, if nothing else, you're going to play it and you're going to make Heather and Emily cry. So do it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Use that in some capacity. Don't delete it. It's good content, right? To get into the vernacular. My third thing. I just totally fucking trolled you, man.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of myself.
But it was a fair point to be made.
Most trolling is.
Yeah. Because you do nag me, and you and Stephanie both nagged the shit out of me about when am I going to be on your show? And you did stop. Steph still nags me until I finally scheduled with her. So it's like, when am I going to be on your show? It's like, I mean, it's not that I'm saying you have to, but you know, like, really? Because you keep saying when. But yeah,
I stopped nagging because I don't have the self-confidence. Like legit. I'll ask once or twice with people, can I come on your show? But, and people would be surprised to know that, I think, because I come off as extremely self-confident on my show because I am, when it's my house. You know, when I know what I'm doing, when I feel like I'm in charge, I can put that on. I don't feel it, but I know how to act that way. That's how you walk into a prison. It's how you walk into a psych hospital. It's how you walk into an emergency room. Like, I got this. And if it's fake, it's fake. That's fine. Like the world can be burning down around you, but you have to, you know, communicate to this person in front of you, like, I got this, because they're out of control in some way. So that's a skill that I have, and fine. But even when I have somebody coming on my show and we're first in the early stages of when are we going to schedule, what are we going to talk about, what's it like? Because a lot of people haven't heard my show. And so I try to explain, like, I don't care what we're going to talk about. Like, anything is fine. It is extremely hard for me to say to them, do you want me to come on your show too? Like, do you want a full crossover, or do you just want to be a guest on mine? Like, that takes such a degree of self-confidence and such a step out of, because I'm certain they're going to say no, and I don't want to put them through that pressure. So that's why I stopped, is because there comes a point where it's like, I can't anymore. I can't handle this anymore. And especially this year, like, there's been so many things about 2019 that have just eroded my self-confidence and my sense of self-worth that I can't keep putting myself out there in that way. And that's not me pressuring you to say, like, so then have me on your show, dude. Although I totally could, and that would be hilarious. Yeah. But no, it's just saying, like, I used to be much more able to sort of step forward and say, would you like me on on your show? Because I'm a fucking expert. I can't do it.
Yeah. I don't have the general confidence, especially considering, like, okay, I'm not an expert in a lot of things. Like, I can bullshit about just about anything, but I don't know what it is that I can go on another show in most cases and offer anything. Like, what are you going to have me on? Bullshit. That's it. It's like, I could do, like, I think I could go on, like, the Countdown movie and TV reviews. Why? Because it's a lot of bullshitting and talking movies. I can bullshit and talk movies. I can go talk to you because talking to you is emptying out everything in your head, which I kind of do here anyway. But then you start, you start rearranging the building blocks that I just dumped in front of you and build a Lego castle out of it and somehow make an episode out of whatever the fuck I just said. But in most cases, only people have topics and ideas and a focus, and like, I don't fit into that. So in most cases, if you're not talking podcasting, I probably don't have anything that I can provide for your show. It's
Adam, shut up. Like, legit, shut up. That's my professional opinion.
Where's that? Was it a Bob Newhart? Stop it.
Sure, I don't know. I don't watch TV. But yeah, I mean, of course you do. But that's what I'm saying, though. It's like, I know I'm a fucking professional. Like, I know I can talk intelligently about anything. And yet, it's really hard for me to put myself out there. It's really hard for me to approach somebody and say, do you want me to come on your show?
Yeah.
Because, it's, like, some of them are because they have extremely scripted shows. And then there's this feeling of, like, I'm asking you to adjust your format in some way to fit me, and that feels awkward as fuck, and so I don't do that. And then when they're not scripted shows, that's even worse if they say no. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah. And that's the thing where, like, I know that I have a good show. I know my shit because I'm trained in it. Like, I know just how to speak about things intelligently. I can talk about most human behavior so that I at least sound intelligent. I may not be right, but I know how to sound like I am. And yet I suffer from this lack of self-confidence, which I was able to mask better, actually, my first year of doing it. But then, between, like, so in order, in 2019, I've had 3 major health crises of loved ones. I've had a stalker who now has a restraining order. My father died by suicide. And I'm next of kin. He lived in our home, but he died out in Vegas, so I had to go out there for that. So that just destroyed me. My mother blames me for my father's death. Then I got pneumonia, and I was in the hospital for a week, and I was down for 6 weeks with that. It's like, that was May through June of this year. And all of those things in their ways carved away at my sense of confidence. And yet I still do the podcast thing. I've had to be very careful about guarding my own boundaries.
Remember how I described these as an info dump? We are a massive info dump here.
I really am.
So much. Because see, when I plan shit doesn't go right. So I plan to talk about podcasting, but I've yet to stay on topic for anybody. So, hey, fuck it. It happens with me or you. You plan a topic with either of us, and neither of us really stay on topic unless somebody wants to be nitpicking. No, I'm here to talk about spam.
Well, I've had people write scripts, which is hilarious to me.
But like, have you been on my show?
It's happening tomorrow night, where the woman who's coming on has a full script written already, which I cannot wait. It's hilarious. But I feel like at first, when I started my show altogether, it had to be very scripted to me, or at least very topical. And over time, I've let that go. And now it's pretty freewheeling. And I think that people like that. I think people like to hear their hosts in a different environment.
Well, it's like I was saying before. It's, it's in both of our cases that you follow the show and you listen to the show for the host. It's very personality driven. It's not necessarily, it's like, yes, it is about hearing the stories from your guests, but it's not completely about their stories. It's how you manage to get them to tell those stories. And it's about you and your interaction with those people and how those stories come about through the conversation with you. And if you take you out of that equation, these stories are kind of flat.
Well, they just become different. And that's something that, like, the reason that I know that my show is not therapy is that I tell a lot of my own stories and I bring a lot of myself on purpose. Like, that's very conscious because I don't want it to feel like therapy hour for everybody. So yeah, it's definitely a heavy load of personal information dump as well in each episode, for sure. But I think that there's a degree of cross promotion that happens so that when you come on my show, some of your listeners follow you and then some of them stay. And I think that's how I built up an audience.
Yeah, and I've been thoroughly surprised with the number of people in your group who have mentioned listening to me. I'm like, really?
Yep.
But I've got I'm at least known inside your group, which just blows my mind.
You have a couple of people with a crush on you, man.
Which is really weird. It's a weird thing. I know, and I'm sure you know so much about so many more people, and people will tell you things that
I know shit. I know the shit, man. But it's that's an aspect of podcasting. Like, I'm relatively certain, not 100%, but I'm relatively certain that you did not go into podcasting so that a couple of enthusiastic listeners,
okay, let's go with that,
would later ask me, like, how come Adam doesn't share more selfies in your selfie threads on the weekends?
Because I'm not especially good looking and I don't like taking selfies.
They disagree.
Yeah,
okay,
I know. My wife would disagree, but I think it has to do. I'm not really one of those people. I don't like taking pictures of myself in general.
I never had until I started my group.
Oh yeah, but on top of that, I'm usually working a lot, and for oddly enough, I'm most of the time when like the selfie thread pops up, I don't have my teeth in. And like, I look like, was it the one selfie I think I put on Instagram where it was one of those, like, I woke up this way and everybody just said I look like Jonathan Davis. Like, I hadn't shaved at all. My hair was just everywhere and I didn't have my teeth in, and everybody said I look like Jonathan Davis. I'm like, yeah, it's bad, but I guess I think if I take my glasses off, I can see that.
I mean, take it. But that's the thing, is that, like, I don't think anybody starts off podcasting. Okay, that's not true. I know some true crime people who did. Some people do. But for the most part, I don't think people, like the people that I'm friends with, did not start podcasting to be famous and did not start podcasting for groupies and that kind of thing. But then as it starts to happen, because my group is like 85% female. And
yeah.
And I'm not going to name the name right now, but you know who I'm talking about. There's at least a couple who just revel in having their groupies in there. And like, I'm fine with that. Like, as long as everybody either keep it appropriate or take it off the board. Like, I don't care which you do. There's
some that kind of, they do a little bit. I don't know if they're trolling their groupies, but they're fishing a little bit.
And, I feel like that's fun, because that's one of the aspects of my group that makes it fun. And I just, like, you talk about one of those, like, side benefits of podcasting that I never looked for, is that my group has become this super, like, supportive, but also open and snarky as fuck place.
Yeah.
And so there's a certain degree of sexual harassment that goes on in that group. And I'm like, you know what? As long as nobody is, like, the people who are going to get upset about it would get upset over anything, and I would rather them sort of get washed out by that.
Yeah.
But
the kind of people that would get upset about that probably wouldn't have joined your group in the first place.
You'd be surprised. Like, I've kicked out 4 people out of 450. I've kicked out 4 people since I started the group. And for the most part, they each had a problem with the tone, the content. So that was, see ya. Like, you're not in the right place, then off you go. Yeah. But the moral is that, like, it's so heavily women, and it's women who tend to run a little bit anxious, tend to run not low self-esteem, but shaky self-esteem. And here is a time where the men who are in my group tend to be more insightful or introspective or just able to express emotion than I think their partners are, because a lot of them are in very traditional masculine, feminine relationship roles. And so the idea that men come in my group and they'll say, I'm having a bad day, or here, they'll post, a meme or a video or something that expresses emotion in some way. And I think that there's a degree to which these women are like, oh my God, men do that. That's amazing. And then they have a crush. So, I mean, like, bask in it. Like, that's all I can tell you.
Yeah, that makes me wonder what the reaction would be for...
I don't even know where this is going.
Well, as you are a member of my Patreon, you got my very, very emotional I'm a little bitch bonus episode. It makes me wonder what the reaction would be to the ladies, especially apparently my groupies in your group, who, if they heard that, oh God.
I dare you to post that. Straight up, double dog dare you to post that.
Ah, jeez. I know everybody that supports me on Patreon we're all very close. Basically, you're all in that very tight friend group of mine. And they're all people that I could sit there and let out that much emotion and be that much of a little bitch and let all of that out. And I'm okay with you guys hearing that. But that's actually where it lives there, because I worry. I give a fuck about my image, but like, I don't know if I could let that out in the general public.
And that is something about my group that I think many, many of the group members display a huge amount of courage by showing their vulnerability and by talking about whether it's a bad day that they're having or a relationship that's falling apart or all kinds of shit. Like, my group is just fascinating, like totally inappropriate memes and stupid jokes and, laughing about things. But then there's also this undercurrent of, I think pretty much anybody in there knows that they can sit down on a given day and be like, I need to say a thing, and it has to be okay. And it has become this very sort of safe space for all of the above. We're all adults, or we act like it for the most part. And if you don't, that's when you're out, like, easy enough. But so I would never post half the shit that I post in my group on Facebook proper. But I dare you to post that in my group.
Maybe I'll just make it an audiogram.
I dare you. I dare you. Straight up dare.
I don't even remember how long that was.
Doesn't matter.
But I remember that was an emotional dump.
Yep.
Right there.
I'm telling you, Adam, it would fit. Uh-huh.
Yes, it would. But because I know you have life to get on with, I have life to get on with. One more time before we go, tell my listener, Paul, where we can find you.
Okay, several places. So my main show is called Ignorance Was Bliss. It is at IWB Podcast everywhere, all of the Twitter, Instagram, Facebook places, and people can totally join my Facebook group even if they don't listen to the show, because it is just like, I don't care, I don't check. So that's the thing. My next show is called Lifeworld, all one word. And that's with Derek, and we talk about cyber crimes and sort of the interaction between the internet and the life world, right? The rest of our actual physical lives. And I've been helping out Ian with a audio drama called Under the Shroud. I don't have anything invested in that except that it's the first long-form audio drama I've ever listened to. So there you go.
Thank you, Kate, for coming on and being awesome and dealing with my crap. Links, of course, to all of Kate's stuff and all the places you can reach her are going to be in the show notes at oddadoutpodcast.com. Of course, there you can subscribe to this show and connect with me on all the social medias at OddDadOut. While you're there, buy a t-shirt or a coffee mug or something, whatever you feel like doing to support the show if you are so inclined. Don't forget to join the Facebook group, and until next time, oddballs, thank you and good night.